I'd love to do a private tour.
Well, this is really all.
All right, welcome to the discussion session for Tuesday, November 25th, 2025. Keith, will you please review our agenda?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we have a public hearing for an ordinance fixing the tax rate for the year 2026 at 4.5 mils. There is no increase in millage proposed. We have the introduction of an ordinance establishing compensation for employees for 2026. And we also have the consideration of a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application to the Commonwealth Financing Authority's statewide local share account. It's a request for a $1 million grant for the demolition of the south garage, and there is no required match.
Process. All right, item number 2 on our discussion session list is a review of the 2026 operational goals for each department and staff office. We are joined by John Trent, who we have met with many times.
Hi, Brent. I'm going to share the document that you also have in hard copy on the screen here. I'd like to first start by saying that, as you well know, but it bears repeating, you have an excellent leadership team, and the professionalism with which they approach projects like this is to be commended, and again pointed out that is not always common in this profession. So it's always great to work with your leadership team and all your staff, and really impressive what they do on a day-to-day basis and their ability to carve out time for stuff like this in terms of thinking forward. Our charge was to work with your leadership team to develop goals for 2026 with an eye towards also creating a framework for future goal setting. This process began with looking at the comprehensive plan and the Ascend Lebo initiatives, or the main topics from the comprehensive plan, the resiliency, engagement, and on the first page you can see a screenshot in terms of the tracking, so that we have that overall framework in mind. Also, again, connecting the dots and not doing anything in a vacuum, we went back to our 2023 session with the commissioners, where we did a strategic plan focusing on aspirational goals, and the process on this page of the document outlines a review of that process that we went through to identify vision, values, mission, and goals, which then also dovetailed back into that comprehensive plan, which at the time was in the works. So it's all tied together, and there's lots of good backbone here for this process. The approach specifically for our 2026 goal setting was to work with every department head and division chief to think about the context of the projects that they have on their current plate and projects that they know are on their immediate horizon, and identify realistic and achievable goals for 2026. The overall structure outlined there in the 3 bullet points was to outline top goals that are aspirational, identify key results and or action items needed to make progress towards that goal, and then identify measures in an appropriate time horizon so we can measure progress towards implementing that goal and the individual projects, as well as the timetable, a realistic timetable for completion. We aimed to make this process as painless as possible. So we did some legwork in advance, reviewing all those documents, reviewing projects and information that Keith had assembled for us in terms of what was already on everybody's plate. We had that in hand, met with each of the leadership folks, and quickly went through with them, identifying what they felt were goals. We then had back and forth with them, taking the notes from our meetings, generating goals and milestones, feeding it back to them. They gave us feedback, and frankly, we had a lot of really good engagement during that process. So we did want to make it as painless as possible, and hopefully it was for them, and it was really meaningful in terms of generating information and goals that are going to be realistic and useful moving forward. We lost let me reshare, something happened here.
And make it painful for you.
When you said making it painful for staff, the IT guy probably took it personally.
I think he did. I think he
He unplugged you.
I'll rejoin the meeting, I guess. I think he just booted me out. Okay, in terms of how we formatted the layout of the document, if you look at, for example, the first goal on page 5 is the commercial districts. At the top of each page for each department is an overview of the headcount for that department, the 2025 budget for the department, and then those key initiatives that Keith and the directors keyed us into in terms of what was on their plate and what they saw in the immediate horizon, so that we have context and can calibrate the new goals with realistic expectation regarding capacity moving forward. So the format is the same for each of these. What I'm going to do is go through each and just highlight one of the goals. There's 29 total goals across all the departments. So just to give you a sample, I'll highlight one from each department, starting with the commercial districts. And the goal identified in the top dark green bar there, make this a little bigger, is to create enhanced placemaking in Uptown that strengthens identity, encourages community use, and supports business vitality. The key results or action items include completion of one capital project by the end of 2026, disseminate at least 3 facade grants to Uptown businesses by March 31st, 2026, and drive an increase in foot traffic by 5% to Clearview Commons compared to 2025 data. The key horizon for all of these goals is December 31st, 2026. Again, the goal being the overall project to set a framework where these goals may remain in place, but on an annual basis, the key results and action items can be updated to continue to further those overarching aspirational goals. Obviously, you're not going to wake up on December 31st, 2026 and create and say that Uptown is now exactly where we want it to be. That's a multi-year process. These projects, however, and these key results or action items should be completed by the December 31st goal date. What are we measuring? Completion of the capital project by end of next year. We're going to monitor the number of facade grants awarded and the percent change in foot traffic. There are 3 goals overall identified for the commercial districts. Then we're going to move on to finance.
Commissioner Silverman has a question.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question, I just don't, when to jump in,
Yeah.
so as long as we're in this category. First, great job as far as going through this, what the goals are and what's being measured and so forth. So please take these questions, because it's be just leaving me. First up, under Eric Milliron's goals for increased tree canopy and biodiversity, one question I thought is that given we're talking about trees, I would have thought that Public Works would be involved with this, obviously planting street trees and so forth. So that's why I thought why this isn't, that's a Public Works goal as opposed to an Eric Milliron goal.
We did talk about that, and Eric talked specifically about, yes, those 2 things go together to further enhance the goal overall, but within Eric's purview, is everybody here behind me? Is Eric here? Feel free to jump in, I don't want to misspeak. But the Hidden Hollow Nature Reserve project was something that was immediately on his radar and an initiative that he would envision advancing next year to further that goal in part. But the street trees are also part of the overarching goal.
And it came as a recommendation from the Resiliency Board, which Eric is the staff liaison to.
Oh, okay.
And Eric
Which is,
what is former board member of Tree Pittsburgh. He has an interest in the topic.
Yeah, this is his thing, yeah.
Okay, I mean, that was the other
His wife
question.
works
What
for
is,
ALT, so.
I was like, what is the Hidden Hollow Nature? I've not heard of that before, so.
There's a whole plan that Eric provided to us, and I'm sure you can get that out to the commissioners as well.
Yeah, the next step in the process when Eric came to me was they said, you really need to loop the Park and Recreation Board in.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's kind of where it sat there.
Okay.
Also pulling in Cullen because the proposed area or location for the project is sort of the obviously non-playable area of the golf course.
Okay,
So we want to make sure that everybody that is potentially impacted by a project is informed and aware before we take it to the next level and have a completely, I'll say, thought out concept before we bring it to the commission.
So, in simple terms, they want to add trees to that Very near the,
I'm not gonna do a disservice to the plan by trying to describe it in simple terms because there's a little bit more to it, Steve, quite
okay,
honestly.
all right, okay. And then back to the measuring of saying, if it's Eric's goal,
Trees
is,
planted to layer and covered by tree canopy. Mhm.
you know, I mean, that's back to how, I try to avoid this. Rudy's supposed to do this, Eric's supposed to do that, just, he's got the ball.
In terms of this goal and Eric's purview, it would just be related to the nature restoration project.
Okay, all right.
Commissioner Silverman, this is Eric. The reason this is, so Keith is correct, this came from the Resiliency Advisory Board. As part of our chapter in the comprehensive plan, expansion of tree canopy is one of the objectives and goals. That's the genesis of this concept.
All right, as long as we've got you on the speaker here, do you want to talk a little bit about this Hidden Hollow nature proposal?
I mean, I can.
I was gonna say,
Let's
We'll have-
if we may.
I don't know how it's, I mean,
Eric, hang on.
Another meeting.
hang on for a second. Why don't we save that for a future meeting? Because John's got a time constraint.
Okay.
And I'd like to allow him to get through sort of his presentation, if that's acceptable.
Other than running out of future meetings. But
Well-
I understand.
All of our meetings are open to the public. More than one.
No, thank you. Thank you. The view is much more fun up here, but no, I respect times.
Okay, so moving on to finance. 7 full-time employees, 2025 budget of $642,000. Key initiatives, EMS study, wage and benefit study, and police contract negotiations. A sample goal is to provide exceptional user experience for residents paying bills online, driving a greater share of residents to use online services. Key results or action items will begin implementation of a software system designed for municipal tax and fee collection by March 31st of 2026. Integrate QR code payment options into billing communications by that same date. Increase the proportion of bills paid online by 10% for the 12-month period ending June 2026 compared to the 2024-2025 baseline. And increase the number of emailed receipts issued for both online and in-person payments by 20% compared to the baseline. We're going to achieve all of those key results by October 31st, 2026. We're going to be specifically measuring the percent of bills paid online and the number of emailed receipts to track progress towards that particular goal. Now I'll just quickly go through the other goals as well. Initial finance goals support the operation of an efficient and cost-effective municipal government through improved service delivery and financial stewardship. And then moving on to fire. 19 employees, over $4 million budget, 2025. Several key initiatives that are on their current and future radar. The first goal identified is to optimize volunteer utilization to improve operations and enhance service delivery. Key results or action items include the expansion of the duty and standby shifts program to increase volunteer participation and coverage, shift coverage by June 30th of next year. Reduce the number of off-duty callbacks by 10%. Update EMS program to enable volunteers to respond autonomously to QRS calls using SUVs rather than fire engines. Reduce annual millage on fire engine, annual mileage. No annual millage is being reduced, I apologize. Reduce annual mileage on fire engines by 1% compared to 2025, and provide targeted training to ensure volunteers can independently manage QRS calls by March 31st. All of this will be done and projected to be done by June 30th of 2026. We're going to measure fire engine mileage versus baseline, number of and cost of callbacks requiring overtime pay, number of QRS calls managed by independently by volunteers, and completion of the training program. I will say, when we worked with the directors to identify these measures, these are things that are real, that are either already being measured now or they're confident they can be measured with existing data. So there's no sort of additional projects to create the data collection associated with these measures. These are already things that we have access to or can easily have access to measure. Second goal for fire was to achieve a standard of excellence in fire service delivery by securing a favorable recommendation for reaccreditation from the Commission on Fire Accreditation. And those are listed below. Next up, human resources. One very capable employee, $162,000 budget, many key initiatives, and the bullet points listed there on the radar for that department. Goal number one, develop a robust applicant pool for hard-to-fill full-time and part-time positions. Our key results or action items are to increase the total applications received for targeted positions, including crossing guards, part-time custodians, recreation center part-time staff, golf course part-time staff, and seasonal pool managers by 20% compared to the 2025 baseline. Reduce the number of unfilled vacancies in these positions by 20% compared to the 2025 baseline, and conduct at least 5 community outreach activities in 2026 to include discussion and brainstorming with applicable department heads regarding specific community outreach strategies such as job fairs, tabling at local events, etc. All this will be completed by December 31st of next year, and we're measuring applications received for targeted positions as described above versus the 2025 application numbers received, unfilled vacancies for targeted positions versus the 2025 numbers, and documenting the outreach activities conducted next year. A second goal is to cultivate a safe and respectable workplace for all employees, and there's several key action items that are listed there. And a third is to promote a culture of well-being among municipal employees, which includes distribution of EAP information and working with key department heads and managers regarding safety training.
What's EAP information?
Employee Assistance Program.
Oh, thanks. Makes sense.
Inspections Department, 4 full-time employees, a budget of just over $500,000. A couple of key initiatives, including Municity and Bluebeam, both software systems. Goals identified by Rodney. The first goal is to expand digital permitting capacity to improve efficiency and transparency. Key results or action items include ensuring 100% of permits submitted digitally are reviewed, tracked, and issued online. Reach 60% of all permit applications submitted digitally, and to train staff to be fully proficient in the Bluebeam software for plan review, plan markups, and comments uploaded into the Municity software by mid-2026 to transition that whole process to being a digital process. All of that will be completed by June 30th of 2026, and we're going to measure the digital versus paper applications submitted, the digital submissions reviewed and issued online, and staff training completion for proficiency in those 2 software programs that the department uses. A second goal for that department is to increase public awareness and adoption of digital permitting submittals. So as that permitting process becomes more efficient in terms of its digital abilities, we also want to make sure we're increasing the visibility to the public and the ease of access to that digital portal. For the IT department, 4 employees, budget of $745,000 for this year, and IT modernization is on their list of key initiatives. The goal for the department is to optimize Mount Lebanon's digital infrastructure to provide a seamless, secure, and efficient user experience for employees and departments. Key results or action items: identify all remaining shared drives and personal storage locations not hosted through Microsoft 365, so everybody who's hiding a hard drive out there or a flash drive that they shouldn't be forewarned. Decommission at least 3 on-premise servers by the end of the year, and develop a standardized reporting process for tracking cloud utilization and server reduction by November 30th of next year. All this will be done by the end of next year, and one of the things that the department will be able to monitor is the storage the reduction in storage file size. Library, 11 full-time employees, budget of $1.7 million, several key initiatives listed for that function. Goal number 1 at the bottom of the page is to continue to design a renovated library space that is modern, accessible, and valued by the community. So some of the key results or action items are to conduct a Harvard Institute-style training, facilitate community focus groups, and launch a community design survey. Incorporate findings from the focus groups and surveys into the plans for the space renovation, and to upgrade the library bathrooms to meet ADA requirements. The goal for completion of these initiatives will be by the end of June next year. We're going to be measuring focus group participation and survey responses. A second goal will be to continue to maintain a current and diverse library collection, continuing the weeding process to reduce holdings by 10%, and continue to implement findings from diversity audit. Moving on to the planning department. 1.5 employees. Budget of a little over $357,000, several key initiatives, including Activated Uptown, Self Garage, Active Transportation, etc. First goal is to improve access to and understanding of municipal planning and land development process for residents. Key results or action items are to publish updated educational materials and to host informational events. Add at least 5 new FAQs or resource documents to the municipal website. And research and evaluate software options for an online portal for the application processes. All of this will be done by the end of next year, and we'll be monitoring attendance at informational events, visits to the FAQ pages on the municipal website, and use of the online portal. Police Department, 46 full-time employees, a little over $11 million budget. Key initiative that's on the radar right now is developing the role of the social service coordinator, and the goal is to optimize responses to residents experiencing mental health or behavioral health crises by strengthening prevention, coordination, and follow-up. Our key results or action items include reduce officer on-scene time by 10% for mental health and behavioral calls by the end of next year, increase interactions with local organizations such as schools, houses of worships, and nonprofits that can connect residents to appropriate services before a crisis occurs, with at least 1 engagement per month. Reduce the rate of repeat callers for mental health and behavioral health calls by 10% compared to 2025 levels, and provide monthly training sessions in 2026 for officers and municipal staff on mental health conditions, mental health first aid, suicide prevention, and self-care. All of those completed by the end of the next year, and several things to monitor in terms of tracking progress, officer time spent on scene for mental health behavioral calls, number of proactive engagements with local partner organizations, repeat caller rate for mental health related calls, and the number of trainings delivered and staff participation rates. Second goal for the police department is to ensure consistent police service delivery by maximizing the portion of the year the department operates at full staffing capacity, and one of the key results is to achieve at least 70% of the year with no more than 1 officer vacancy by December 31st, 2026, attend at least 5 recruitment events, increasing the average number of qualified applicants based on compared to 2025, and reduction in reliance on overtime hours by 15%. Third goal for the police department is to ensure Mount Lebanon's policing policies and procedures are innovative, evidence-based, and reflect current best practices, and there are several key results listed there. And fourth, this department is an overachieving one, I suppose. I think there's the most for this department goals. Streamline the department's digital systems to reduce administrative burden and improve information sharing, and there are several key results, as well as several items to measure for tracking of progress. Public Information Office, 3 employees, a little under $1 million budget. Municity, LeboMag, and Active Transportation Plan are all key initiatives that are on the department's radar. Goal to adapt Mount Lebanon's website and communication channels to maximize resident access to timely and accurate information as AI becomes a common tool for finding answers. Add FAQs to 100% of key municipal web pages by the first quarter of 2026. Increase total hits to FAQ content by 20% compared to 2025, and to monitor and update the FAQ entries monthly to address new resident and visitor questions. All this will be completed by the end of next year, and we can measure the percentage of web pages with FAQ sections monitor the number of FAQ page hits, and the frequency of needed FAQ updates and additions to the website. A second goal for Public Information Office is to protect residents from misinformation by creating clear, authoritative sources of truth on Mount Lebanon's digital platform. Key results or action items: the launch of Mythbusters or rumor control page on the website next January. Promote Mythbusters content quarterly across multiple communication channels that already exist. And achieve at least 100 visits per month to the Mythbusters page for the first quarter of 2026. All this will be done by March 31st, 26. We'll be monitoring page visits, engagement metrics. Public Works, 31 full-time employees, a little under $13 million budget. Several initiatives listed that are on the radar. First goal is to create a healthy, safe, and engaged public works workforce. We're going to reduce workers' comp claims by 10% compared to 2025. Achieve 100% attendance of public works staff at all required workplace safety training courses. And maintain an average employee attendance rate of at least 90% across all divisions in those courses. Complete this by December 31st of next year, and we'll be able to track workers' comp claims, employee attendance at trainings. Second goal is to ensure safe pedestrian mobility throughout Mount Lebanon. This is all about the sidewalks throughout the community. So completing a condition assessments across all 10 sidewalk sections in the first half of 26. Replace at least 40% of damaged sidewalks in 26. And replace 10% of sidewalk damage caused by municipal tree root damage in 2026. We can monitor the number and percentage of damaged sidewalks repaired, completion of an annual condition assessment, and also the percentage of municipal tree-related sidewalk damage addressed. Recreation, 16 employees, $4.7 million budget, many key initiatives around the racket center and the pickleball courts and all things dealing with rackets. Capitalize on recent investment at the racket center by providing updated and expanded programming that is valued by the community. That will include launching 3 new programs or leagues led by the full-time tennis manager by June of next year, increasing overall participation in the racket center by 5% for the 12-month period ended June versus the prior period. Track and report on program satisfaction quarterly, and report 85% satisfaction with racket center programming for 2026. We'll be tracking throughout the year next year program participation as well as program satisfaction. We also have a goal for increasing resident feedback to inform continuous improvement of recreation programming, a goal to improve recreation center facility maintenance and employee training and retention to provide clean and well-maintained facilities. And then moving on to management, 2.5 employees, a little over $500,000. The key initiatives are split by the manager and the assistant manager. And the first goal is to increase meaningful engagement and actionable input across Mount Lebanon's advisory boards. And this is an initiative, as you well know, that again goes way back to the comprehensive plan, the strategic plan, and all that continues to push through. So define standardized process and set tools for collection of advisory board input by the end of the first month of next year. Document how advisory board feedback is incorporated into at least 3 municipal projects, again, to connect those dots so that the feedback results in meaningful connection to actual projects. And circle back and share the advisory board contributions in project summaries or reports to ensure transparency and show how those dots were all connected. The goal will be completed by the middle of next year, and we'll track project adjustments per advisory board feedback. Second management goal is to increase employee wellness and engagement in the workplace by hosting 4 employee wellness events, achieving at least 80% average participation, and partner with the HR department to implement surveys to collect employee feedback. That is it. It's difficult to put that in a nutshell because that is a lot.
Yeah.
You have got departments operating at a level of efficiency that is to be highly commended. And the fact that they've been able to help us prepare this level of detail for each of these departments is pretty remarkable. And this should be a tool that you guys can use moving forward, updating on an annual basis for each department.
I got a bunch of comments.
Yeah.
I think this is great. I think this structure of OKRs is what we've needed for a long time. And I think it's really good that we've got this framework in place that can be used. A couple general notes. Where we mention baselines, I don't see those numbers here, so I think we need to put those in. So if you mentioned that we either have them or have access to them, they should be put into the goals. So where we mention things like baselines, we should identify that and then talk about percentages above or changes to. So that would be one thing. The second thing I would do is, I sent this to the commission, I've done it every year for a couple of years, but we should have some sort of table that lists where we are in those baselines, what our goal is, right? So then we could measure whether we achieved them or not, right? Because the necessity of this OKR structure is such that if you complete the KRs, you necessitate the completion of that goal, right? So there are a few of these where I don't think that's really the case, but they could be with a little bit of tweaking. The other side of it is I think we need to pin numbers like KPIs on some of those, not just the baselines, but the upside, right? Like we can say 10%, but we should put a number to some of those too. So that's good. The other thing that I would say is, and this is just a general, we need to somewhere, and this could just be a policy, right? Like the goal of this is not for employee performance.
Right.
This is for the benefit of our residents, the benefit of our staff, somewhere, and I don't know if it's a policy or something in the back end or our HR director can figure it out. It needs to be made very clear to all staff that this is not to be used for performance review. This is not to be tied to anything related to salary or anything like that. When we have a goal that says, I'm just gonna use PIO, I thought their goals were pretty good. Increase web traffic by 50%. We only get 30%. That's not a failure in my mind. That should necessitate a question from us that says, the goal was 50, we hit 30. Was it a bad goal? Did we not resource you well enough? Laura might be like, oh no, we just, several staff retired, we just didn't have the staff. So then we recognize that, and then that helps us with our next year's goal. So I think it's really important that staff understand that this is not a tool by which we're tying it to any kind of review or anything like that. Because it's important that they feel that they have the ability to experiment and try to achieve these goals without worrying about, like, if I don't achieve this, I'm gonna be fired, that kind of thing. Because that's not what this is for. I have a couple other comments, but I'll let other people speak. Specific ones. All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, I thought it was good.
So on the commercial side, I'll just go in order. One of them is review and modernize signage permit process. I'm not sure how that contributes to the overall goal. And you don't have to answer all these, I'm just making comments. One, reduce customer complaints. I think that's a great start for a goal, but I think we need to set a baseline for that number and then a reduction for the customer complaints. Otherwise, this becomes anecdotal. So I think if we're gonna say, over the last year, we received 100 business complaints, this year we received 50. It's probably progress. So I think we should do that.
I can see why the sign permit works.
What's that?
I can understand this review and modernize signage permit. If you're asking for, if the goal is to create a local regulatory environment that facilitates new business locations, one of the problems for our businesses right now is the signage ordinance, which is outdated, doesn't really address what the buildings are and what new visibility can be. So I think updating that is paramount to making sure that new businesses feel welcome and that they can use their own creativity within a realm, within regulations to make it better. I'm okay with that.
So we might want to restructure that along the lines of like modernize the signage and permit process so that businesses feel they can do X, Y, Z.
Yeah, something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's parking requirements the same way. Years ago, I can remember working in the development community that the big issue always was, it's not always the rules, it's understanding what the rules are so we know what to do. So this is Orbis put together a sign and it didn't meet the signage code and yet they had it done and they weren't able to put it up. it's not a good thing. And I'm not blaming us, but I'm just saying that's the point of making sure that we have this done so that people understand it.
On fire, we have expand duty and standby shift program. I would ask what those numbers are. And so like we say, expand duty and shift program to increase volunteer participation. What is the volunteer participation now and what do we want it to be at the end of that period? I was a little bit confused by the callbacks one. We're asking for reduce the number of off-duty callbacks by 10%, approximately 30 fewer incidents requiring overtime response, achieved through increased volunteer participation in duty and standby shift programs. It might just be the way I'm reading it.
It's hard on the
Career staff to
career
come back
staff to
for
get called
all
back.
calls
Right,
all the time. So if they don't have to be responding
right.
to every all call, it's good for their mental health, but B, it's also good for our budget.
Right, and
So is
so how
there-
do we incentivize
The
our
volunteers
volunteers to
to-
make sure they do it?
So the
Can do it.
Okay, so the question I would have then is, what % increase in volunteer participation do we need to achieve a 10% decrease in callbacks?
Right.
So I would try to figure that out. And then,
Okay.
how do we track that?
Yeah.
That would be part of that
Sure.
KPI table. Okay, so the other one on reducing mileage,
Of that,
yeah, like,
on it.
I would tie that to the benefit, and say something along the lines of like, is the goal really to reduce mileage or is it to extend the lives of our vehicles? So maybe the goal is extend the life of our vehicles by 10% by reducing mileage 1% per year for 5 years, or something like that.
And say reducing mileage on the truck being the more expensive item than
Right.
the SUV.
Possible
Right.
to deploy one.
Yeah, but I'd be detailed on that because then we could measure it, we could track it, and we could report on it and say, how did we do? We didn't reduce mileage. Okay, why? Well, we had 90 more calls. Why did we have 90 more calls? Well, commercial inspections reduced by 10%. We had 3 more fires that were, so like you could go down the line and figure out why did we not hit those?
The why is important.
Right. Okay, I don't know the fire service well enough, but this was just my comment. The part about submitting annual compliance reports, those don't feel like goals to me, those feel like something that we do anyway. So like, the question is, if we don't do that, like, is that really a goal? I mean, like, would we submit those compliance reports as part of our normal course of business?
Yeah, I understand, trying to get away from things we routinely do, being a
Right.
goal as opposed to something
Right.
that we do anyway.
Right. I mean, in general, I like to do, I'll get to a couple of these that are like happiness sentiments, especially when I get to HR, but like, is there an index that we can create for happiness with the fire department? Like how to read like a resident sentiment index with the fire department? And then what is that January 1st? What is it June 30th? And what is it December 31st? And, how do we make progress on, making sure that residents are happy with the fire service, whatever that means.
We all love the fire department.
So let me.
But it's also just that, it's easy to say number of miles and say, why were we over or under the bogey? Even to a comment made earlier about number of complaints. Well, you got 10 less complaints, but each complaint had 30 subparts to it. So, being careful to drill into what exactly, so.
Numbers, yeah.
That's where, it's good to see it, it's a tough one to measure. Are you happier today than you were yesterday?
Well, you define what those measurements are. You define what is happiness for a particular resident or a particular department or an employee, right? Like here's HR one. So again, I don't know the HR policies well enough, but I'm assuming that those trainings are required. Like if we didn't do them, we might be in violation of something, so
No,
like.
some of them, I've talked to her about this, because we were talking about it in relationship to CEB. And some of it, she decided to start doing again because there'd been enough turnover in staff. We don't do it every
retraining.
single year.
Right.
It was
And
yeah.
not to, this is all a good discussion.
Sure.
We should continue.
Yeah.
I know John has somewhere that he needs to be. Can we let John go?
Yeah.
He can always watch the video.
Sure.
Yeah, I was taking notes as you're all talking. I'll watch the video and circle back with Keith after.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
We appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so just a few more. So like, again, and I don't know HR policies well enough, but like EAP distribution seems like something that we'd be required to do.
No, I don't think so.
It's not necessarily required. It is something that we offer as a free benefit to all of our employees, who I will tell you, unfortunately, I don't think that, it's all part of the orientation that you get when you're hired as a new
Yeah.
employee, right?
Yeah.
But you get a whole lot of information as part of that orientation.
I would maybe figure out a way to rephrase that. Again, on the HR stuff, I come back to like employee happiness, right? Because you can create something that you're having conversations with the employees, like, why do you like working here? What are the 5 things that are important to you? Aggregate that across all 100-something employees or whatever, and then come up with an index of where we stand, and then develop a program or things that would increase that employee happiness index. Like that to me would be like a fair HR goal.
I would think employee turnover.
Would be part of that, yeah.
Because
Sure.
then you're saying it's not abstract. I give you a 9, I'll give you an 8.
Yeah.
To say, did they leave or did they stay?
But I think you would, I mean, we have, you know, like, we have retirements, that's fine. I think you would want to define the type of turnover
Yes.
and then put numbers to that, if, you know, so that kind of stuff.
The things we're starting to see the impacts of, quite honestly, is AI and technology. We always try to stay at the forefront of all of these issues, but sometimes, I'll say, don't always do a good job of recognizing the back end human capital costs
Sure.
by the stress it creates with
Sure.
the employees
Yeah.
of an ever-changing
Yep.
sort of way to conduct whatever the services that they're providing, so.
I skipped inspections. Inspections, I would tie these to numbers too, like, we've got stuff here about moving to online. I think stuff like increasing share of permits online from 55 to 75% is probably helpful more to staff than to people, although there's definitely a benefit to residents. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I would do things that are like more driving value to the residents. So we will issue all permits, we will review and disposition, not issue. We will review and disposition one way or the other, all permits within a 2-week period or less, that kind of thing. Planning. Police, sorry. I think their overall goal, ensure consistent delivery of maximizing, oops, I just lost my spot. That's a good one. I think the KRs relate closely to that goal. The comment about officer on scene time, reducing that by 10%, the comment I would have is by doing what? So like, is the idea that we increase the social service coordinators? So I would define that in that goal. Like, we will reduce officer on scene time by 10% by increasing social service coordinator participation from 5 on-scene calls a year to 30 on-scene calls a year. I don't know what those numbers are. I'm sure Chief has them broken down somewhere, or has a sense of what that is. I would put that in the goal. The reduced rate of repeat callers by 10% compared to 2025 levels. Again, I would add by doing what?
By wraparound services.
What's
That's
that?
part of what she does.
Correct.
She is able to pull in the wraparound services, which take her out of being the only person that deals with them, which is a big part of her job and a very valuable part of what she does, I think.
Yeah, I think Greg's 2 questions sort of tie together, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
It's the answer of
Right.
how or by doing what sort of will fit with both of those, I believe.
Yeah.
And future resourcing to say, we may find we need to hire a second person for
Right.
social services because of how effective they are in reducing that call time.
And of getting services to people, and it's just huge.
Library, I had increased, this is just a separate, increased number of residents that use our online or in-person services from 80 to 90%. I don't know what those numbers are, but I would kind of pin
Baseline.
number. Yeah, I would try, again, put those baselines in there. Increase online book availability by 10% by X date. I think Robin talked about that during the year, like that's hard to pin a number on because we don't know how much we're gonna have, but diversity audits, I would be specific, like those, I would say which ones we're gonna try to do. rather than just say we might do some diversity audits. I would try to pick.
It's diversity of the
I think it's
collection.
diversity of the collection.
Collection,
Oh,
yes, it's not.
an audit of
Yeah,
the diverse, I
of the
understand.
collection.
All right,
Yeah.
that makes more sense, okay. All right, PIO, I think, had good goals, recreation had good goals. The only note I had on recreation was there mentions of satisfaction. I don't know if it was a survey, but we would need to know what that baseline is now, because I think it's, the number he pins is 80 or 85%. If the number is above that, we'd be going backwards. I assume it's not, but, okay. Management, I think the standardized process is good. Implementing advisory board recommendations into actual projects is out of your control. So the commission might look at those things and say, we don't like any of them, in which case, by no fault of your own, that would be something that you have no effect on.
Right.
So I don't know that that's really a
And I'll
good
make the
one.
rec center into the stadium.
You know, I would tie it, you know, yeah. I'm not sure what to do with that one, Keith, but.
Yeah, let me think about how I could reword
Yeah.
that to try to.
And the other side of that is, you know, like, we set up that process that we all wanted to be notified of that, and we voted on a few, some took legal action.
Right.
They took a really long time. You know, you might be setting yourself up for frustration on
Yeah,
that.
honestly, I really like that you're trying to put a more clear process around it.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
Yes.
Personally, I would love to see those things posted on the website with a disposition, right? Because,
Yeah,
again.
this is why we're
what-
doing it or not doing it or
Yeah,
whatever.
what is it? Keep, you
Yeah.
know, this is an issue of transparency for the community, for board members, right? That it's the commission's, it has to do something, and if they choose not to do something, that is a decision that they've made, and
Right,
you
sure,
can complain about it.
Right.
Rather than it just going into a void. So what is that process, right? And what is that, you know, framework?
That's a
Makes
good
sense.
point, because that makes it, I'll say measurable as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're moving it through the process.
Yeah.
The commission doesn't have to.
Right.
But that's their choice, that's not your
You got halfway there with the OneDrive sheet. You know, some commissioners
Yes,
looked at them, some
yes.
didn't. We just got very busy, and, you know, so
Yeah.
that's like a failure of the commission, in my opinion. But like, that was a good improvement over 9 different boards submitting recommendations and going
yes.
nowhere, and
Track it.
them being frustrated with the commission.
Right.
So like, yeah,
Something to that effect may sort of close that loop or
Mm-hmm.
finish the process, right? So
Yeah.
that, again,
Yeah.
everybody can see it.
Right.
The results are the results.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Well, and think of the example of residents who say, we want a sidewalk, or we want traffic calming. We've
Yeah.
put this forward, the board has said you have cleared that threshold that we require.
Right.
We have said, we support it, it should go on the agenda.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
where is it at in the process now?
And for some of the ones that, just because of what they are, turn into sort of a multi-year process.
Yes.
Sort of
Yeah.
a tracking piece to that, like,
Right.
for scrub
Rec
grass.
center.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
part of
where
it.
we've implemented a percentage of those traffic calming recommendations, but not the other ones because we're waiting to repave a section of road. We don't want to,
Right.
so, yeah.
The last thing I'll say is, I just think this is really good work. I think this is a huge improvement over what we had done in the past. I would recommend that the commission actually vote this into the approved budget, like the manager's budget. This becomes an addendum of the budget process. Obviously, it doesn't relate necessarily to, you know, expenditure of money, although some of these will require, right? But this should be something that is public and saying, these are our goals, this is what we're going after. We might not hit them all, this is what we're trying for in the next year or 2 years, however some of these take. That would be my recommendation, that we adopt these publicly and say, we have discussed this, we think this is the path forward for all of these departments, and done in conjunction with the mission and vision of our strategic plan and comprehensive plan. I mean, this is kind of like the individual goal items that I think really lend to how we're going to do those things. I think it'd be smart to publish this. And we might not reach half of these, but we look back and we say, what happened? Do we adjust them? Do we move forward? Are they really a good goal for next year? Great, we think we could do it. Let's push it forward and let's put it back on the list for next year. I think these are great.
I would think of doing not tied in a budget, but to your point, a standalone, this is our sense of, this is the goal.
Yeah.
One of the items is Public Works, and there's items for sidewalk here. My note was, if we provide enough dollars for this.
I know, because
we'll find-
we added some
Yeah.
dollars in the budget process. I wondered exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and we may get to
Yeah.
August
Whether
and
it's gonna be
go,
enough or not. I
there
don't know.
wasn't
We
enough
won't
set
know
aside
till
or
we get
plenty,
bids,
but this will help.
Here's what I hope happens with this. As we, we always have to approve a budget. We have to arrive at some number. The manager by ordinance has to do a balanced budget, right? So the exercise will, for example, Robin's got a goal in there. And Robin comes back and says, I can't achieve this goal unless I get another $9,000 to do X. That's a response. Then that has to come forward to the budget process. If we said this is a goal. If we want to achieve it, we have to allocate that money. If we don't, we're saying that's not really a goal. It's not an important goal, which is okay, but
Well,
I.
or we've decided we don't want to raise the taxes to meet it or whatever
Yeah,
else.
but that's an answer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We say,
No,
listen, this.
there's an answer,
Right,
yeah.
and then we know.
Yeah,
And every year when I meet with department head, staff
Yeah.
office chiefs, we run through their goals.
yeah.
One of the last questions that I ask almost invariably of each one of them is, what do you need from me in order for
To be
you
able
to
to
be
do this,
achieve your goals or to provide a better level of service? Because really, that's one of my key functions, is making sure that they have the tools
Absolutely.
and resources that they need to be effective
their
in their
jobs.
positions.
Right.
And a lot of that ties back to the commission, because ultimately you're the body that allocates funding, so.
Yeah, and a lot of this, it's gonna require funding.
That is an interesting point that you make, though, is the kind of the timing of this exercise, and how does that layer in overall,
budget
right?
process,
I love
yeah.
this too, I think this is a great document, right? How does this inform, right, the budget process? I think that's a bigger question, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of other pieces that have
Yeah.
to be, but it's a valid way to
It takes a year or
think
two to
about.
get there, right?
Yeah.
But as a living document, you can see the progress along the way. I mean, you've got measurements built in all the way through it. So it's not like you're gonna have to wait till December to know everything.
Like what Ian and team did with the comprehensive plan with the dashboard that shows percent completion. This was like when we did that first thing with Trant, where we did commission priority projects, this was like my priority project to create a dashboard, which I think we should do with these things, right? And the goal is not to the goal would be to complete all of them as written, but things happen. We might not be able to
Right.
complete them, and having that dashboard gives us the ability to say, like, we are not gonna hit this goal. Why? And that's okay on a lot of these, probably. Yeah. That's all I got.
No, that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
That's all?
I think we left a minute and a half for the chief.
Well, I'm gonna, hold on for a second, Chief. Given where we are and the chief's topic, while I know the commission requested it, it's not necessarily
Right,
an
not make or
immediate
break it
priority.
tonight.
If you'd prefer just to do boards and authorities update and then
Sure.
take the additional time to go back into exec.
Sure,
To do that, chief, I can bring you back next month.
I'll be here, boss.
So if we want to do,
I got library board updates.
updates.
Okay, poinsettia sales, 12/1, 12/8, buy your poinsettias at the library. Don't even think about buying them anywhere else, I'm watching. And the chief put a camera in there to make sure all the commissioners buy their poinsettias.
I'll give you plenty of opportunity.
They just finished their, and I can't say the word, flood.
Yola Buchenflug.
Eula Buchenflug, oh wow.
The Icelandic
I
flame
just,
boats.
I know, well, I went, but I didn't, I can't say the
I've been
word.
working with my Icelandic.
Anyway, it was jammed with people, and it was really good. The vendors were good, the food was good. Yeah, I bought a box of cookies, I ate them all myself, got it. But it was delicious, so thank you to all the people who baked cookies who gave me a jump start on my holiday weight gain. I'm very appreciative of that. There you go, that's right, there we go. Let me see, three or four authors are presenting in the first week of December, so there is a packed program schedule. Be there or be square. And other than that, it's just going very well. The library has a strong board. It's a great facility, and I'm looking forward to the ADA improvements.
No updates on resiliency since our last meeting.
They're resilient.
Mobility continues to work on, street design issues. Really, I would say in alignment or in parallel with the active transportation plan. There's a lot of thinking going on. We continue, it is a hard topic, but
It really is.
we're hoping to synthesize at the kind of the
Yeah.
active transportation plan culmination when that starts to wrap up. But we continue to get concerns about, street
Oh, yeah.
sidewalks, crosswalks. It's a consistent issue, but I think this commission has started to show that there's consistent support for addressing these things.
Right.
So incremental moves, one step at a time, but there's a lot of demand.
Yeah, I'm sure they're up to date on what's going on Penn Avenue, but I was looking at that design the other day, just shaking my head. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
It's a terrible design, but I'm not sure how how we would fix, for example, Washington Road. Where do we put it? In the middle of anyway. But it is a very difficult thing to figure out, to keep everybody safe.
And from a board perspective, right, and at least my
Yeah.
push is, you have to look at it from a policy level.
Yeah,
Boards.
true. No, they don't design, but some of them can bring experience with designs in other
100%.
places, which
But
is
that's the
helpful.
question of how do you put in the principles so that they can be implemented at
Yeah.
a staff level.
It's hard.
So yeah, it is hard.
Have you made any progress, do you need any help making progress with pulling the school district into the conversation?
I think, I'm hoping that the active transportation plan, right, is facilitating that process. I know that was actually a conversation that Jim Haberman and I had about safe walking routes, and my
Right.
concern is that they're having the conversation about safe walking routes outside of the active transportation conversation, which frankly should all be one conversation. They
That's
should
right.
not be separate,
Right.
because I fully agree that the police need to be concerned about the here and now, and protecting people in the existing infrastructure. But if they are designing patterns that are going to implicate future design patterns, we need to wrap
Right.
that into
Right now.
this effort right now. So I think that's really my main concern, but the mobility board is not directly engaged on that except for having representation.
Yeah. The mobility board is very involved, or tries to be, with the school district. I don't mean that as a slight. I mean-
Individuals
Right.
are.
But they're also very involved at the PTA level, and that trickles down to the parents, and then they push the board members, so they're present there.
Yes.
They're definitely present,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's a good idea to, like you said, make sure they're not siloed.
One thing is real quick, Mertz is going to vote on their budget tomorrow evening.
Yeah.
Let's see, many members of the finance board attended our short budget session, found it very interesting because we were going down the last lines of the budget. They really like seeing kind of the play-by-play there. And then finally, the Historical Society is re-elected. Alyssa Jones is their president for 2026. That's all I got.
So school district released its 2025 academic outcomes report. It's a great report which discusses all the academics for our school district for the year. It's like 46 pages long. It's a great read. It's very well done. We improved in some categories. We did not improve in some other categories nationally. So that is published on the school district website. I recommend you check it out. It goes over, how did we do on national scoring and statewide scoring, and where do our kids fall versus other kids in the state? Where does the school fall nationally and across the state? How many of our kids are getting into college? How prepared are they for college? What are the alternative paths available to kids in our school? How many kids are making use of those alternative paths? How prepared are they for those alternative paths like trades and partnerships that we have with other trade schools and things like that? So it's a very interesting report. Give it a read. It's on the school district website, published publicly now.
So we are adjourned.
At this point, the commission is going to adjourn to go back into executive session, and we'll the regular meeting at 8 o'clock.